Welcome to another edition of Africa Sideways, ladies and gentlemen, and we got something quite tasty this week. The GWM Tank 500 Hybrid, 250 kilowatts. This is the Fortune Eater. Could it be the Everest Eater as well? I'm really impressed. This is probably the best Chinese car I've driven. Every time I get in a Chinese car, I see improvements. Suspension's great, reminds me of H9 level suspension, loads of power. It all works really nicely. Lots of ground clearance, diff lock front and rear. So they haven't scrimped on any of the off-road ability. With these tires you're not going to be using it, but you could easily put a set of 33s on here and go a lot of places. They've even got a fast off-road button here, so you can see that they want a bit of that after market. You can also see plenty of Prado 150 here with a tire on the back. It reminds me of a cross between a 150 Prado on the back and then like a Escalade that the rappers drive around in the front. It's been catching a lot of attention, that's for sure. And then if we look on the inside, these things pop out every time you open the door. It goes back in again. Comes out. One thing I'm worried about is if you got your foot stuck there, does it have an automatic stop switch? Try this. Okay, so there is a bit of a stopping structure, so if you do get enough pressure on it, it will come back. That's good to know. Good stuff. All wrapped up. Big battery. Starter battery. This engine looks very neat and well done. And there's a nice camera on this car for reversing. That's for shiznits. Welcome to another edition of Africa Sideways. My name is Big Six Simpson and we're coming to you from the brand new GWM Tank 500 Hybrid. Sure, that's quite a mouthful, and it is quite a vehicle, ladies and gentlemen. This is, to my knowledge, the most expensive Chinese car to come onto the South African market. 1.2 million rand for this particular vehicle, but it has plenty to back up that price tag. This particular vehicle has 255 kilowatts of power. It's got a 2-liter turbocharged engine, and it also has a hybrid electric engine, so you're getting the best of both worlds, which really does separate this against, let's look at the rivals. You've got the Fortune Prado Everest, Giro Sport, or the Isuzu MUX, and this feels really top-end luxury. They've ticked that box in no uncertain terms. Got four-wheel drive, and when you stick the boot in, you see that it kind of, when you get it into sports mode, it feels like you're approaching Raptor levels of power. So you got different modes here. You got eco, snow, mud, sand, front and rear diff lock. The one thing I find quite peculiar is, and then you can go off-road mode here, and then you can put on expert. You got an all-wheel drive. There you go. So they got a front and rear diff lock and low range, but they got 20-inch rims with low-profile Continental tires, which aren't going to get you that far on seriously rutted and sharp gravel roads. So the first thing I'd do if I had this vehicle would be to put a set of 18-inch rims on and a proper set of BF Goodrich, because it's got decent clearance, all the low range gizmos in the world, loads of power. just doesn't have the tires, but that's an easy fix. This is sports mode now. You see when you bang it in, it's all there. Brakes are good as well. It feels like Haval have really turned the corner. Before they'd be about 100,000 rand cheaper than the Japanese competition, but now they're actually matching them on price, and you can see why. The build quality is much better. This reminds me of a cross between a Land Rover Discovery, a Prado 150, and a Chevy Escalade. I think, is it an Escalade? Those American ones that the rappers get taken. You see the front end of this car. It's got a big grille, American style grille. It is all happening in bucket loads. Panoramic sunroof. One of the bells of the ball of this thing is you get seat massages. Aha, there we go. After a hard day in the saddle, you get the seat massages. So it's got Audi Q8 level of tech in this thing, which I don't say lightly. It's not a massive beeper. The only thing that I don't like is when you turn the car on, it gives you the welcome signal every single time you get in the car. It's doom 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 doom, which is kind of cool the first time, but every single time it gets a bit much. So sometimes the Chinese cars have those little bit of cringy sort of aspects to it, and it wouldn't be a Chinese car without that. But I haven't digged too deep in the settings to see if I can change that. 2.5 ton towing capacity, which is not as good as a Fortuner and stuff like that, which would be a 3.5 ton, but it's more than adequate. And it will be a safer 2.5 ton because it's so heavy itself that the heavier the car is, because it's a hybrid, it's north of 2.5 tons. So that means towing, if you have to tow 2.5 tons of the 2.5 ton car, it can do it. But the problem with the modern 3.5 ton buckies is the bucky's only 2 ton, and then if you go to that limit, it's way over limit. The car you're pulling, the thing you're pulling shouldn't weigh more than the thing that's pulling it. There we go on the highway. No GPS in this car, which I thought was quite interesting. You got to use your phone. I thought at 1.2 million they'd throw the GPS on the house. Lots of storage space here. You've got this area here, you can charge your phone on there. Nice to keep your key there. The one thing about this key is, because it doesn't have a hook on it, I often don't know where it is. There's something about having a hook. You can just hook it on your key rack and you're in business. Loads of storage space here for your cold drinks. You can tuck it away so it's out of sight, out of mind. In terms of fuel economy, it's not going to be great. Even though it's a hybrid, you're looking at about 13 liters per 100. I get finding the fuel economy is another thing. I found the instantaneous fuel economy. I'm doing 100 and I'm averaging 10 liters per 100 downhill. So the thing about hybrids is that they work better in the city. So on long distance trips, you're not going to be noticing any improvements in fuel economy between this and the petrol. But it's in the city, the stop-start, it can regenerate itself and generate a better. I'd imagine on the highway, if you're doing sensible speeds, you'll be looking at about between 10 and 11 liters per 100, and you'll probably get about the same in the city. Just angles along here. It doesn't give me a rev counter, which I find is a bit peculiar. Got tire pressure on it, so I like that. And it tells you where the energy is at. Compass. Yeah, average fuel is last 70 hours of driving here with a journalist, this thing has got 13.5 liters per 100. So, yeah, that's quite high. You could put a big diesel in here or a 4-liter V6 and you're probably going to be getting similar sort of fuel economy. That's the thing with a hybrid is you have some savings, but then it weighs more, so you know it kind of counterbalances itself. The one good thing about the hybrid is you get the extra power because it's got the electric and the it's got the electric and the petrol engine, so it has its pros and cons. There's just a bit more with a hybrid. You've got to have a petrol and an electric engine, so you could say it's double engineering. On the equivalent Fortuner with less power, you're probably going to be getting about 11 liters, 10, 11 liters. So you'll be getting better fuel economy, but it's not going to have the kick you in the back of the seat sort of vibes this car has. It has this average, it has the speed limiter thing that goes off all the time. It's just a bit of a lark. Acceleration. Yo, that's up to 100 very sharpish. You're not going to get nano Fortuna. I dare say this thing would drop a V6 Everest. So you could say it's one of the fastest 7-seaters in the business. Probably only the German ones are faster. This is faster than all the Japanese 7-seaters. Build quality feels really good. In terms of reliability on these Chinese cars, it's always to be confirmed, so to speak. They seem to be selling a lot of product, that's for sure. They are selling a lot of product. And a lot of product in China itself. The European car companies are starting to struggle a bit with the domination that the Chinese cars are having. This is like, it feels like a changing of the guards, much like when the Japanese cars took over from the US and UK cars. A lot of the early Japanese cars were copies of UK cars from the 60s and 70s. They just made them better and more reliable. And if the Chinese can come in with reliability, they're really the drivability of the cars is on point. One thing I noticed is I got big legs, and on every single Chinese car my leg hits the side here. Luckily they got a bit of cushioning here, but I find my wife fits in perfectly. So for average size people it's big enough, but if you're a big guy with big legs, you're going to find that your leg leans up against the center console quite a bit. Not a bad setup. It looks well put together. And sometimes in the past the Chinese cars looked cheap and nasty. You can't say that about this.
No, this looks optimized. Really nice.
In terms of, you've got an all-wheel drive and a four-wheel drive here, similar to the Everest. Okay, let's give it a stink up here on sports mode. For a big car, it gets going. It certainly does get going, ladies and gentlemen. No way to take chances. Let's see what the handling's like. Our boys drive down. Very, very planted. I took it on a bit of gravel and it handled those bumps with a plum. That is top end Tony. Handling is good. Handling is better than the Fortuner. The thing about them selling more product is the dealer network's getting better in South Africa. terms of luxury, this is top end. There's nothing on here that they've missed out on. Even seat warmers and coolers. I find the screen a little bit big. They could have it a little bit smaller. Tesla's kind of redefined how car companies look at screens, and I don't think it needs to be that big. Your focus should always be on the road, not on the tech. I like the old school clock. These buttons are nice. I think by law now, car companies are having to put more buttons back into the car and not have an over-reliance on touchscreens, but sometimes when they get older or you've got sticky fingers, they're not quite as effective. It's a big roomy car. If you've got kids, this is perfect. You might want to buy this because you think you're going to be saving the planet, but you're going to be burning about the same amount of petrol as you would if you've got a regular 7-seater fossil fuel car. But you've got probably 100 kilowatts more than a Fortuner, which is not to be sneezed at. It's only really the V6 Everest that can really compete in the power stakes with this. That truck ain't light on juice either. So I'd say the fuel economy reminds me of a V6 diesel, 3 litre. Obviously in the city, this thing, if you're doing a lot of bumper to bumper traffic, this one's going to be better because the hybrids really perform well, sort of under 20 k's an hour in the slow stuff. That doesn't even need the petrol. So if you do a lot of town driving, slow driving, a hybrid has got you covered. And in terms of this in the Tank 300, this apparently has got a bigger battery and is better for charging stuff. Oh, what I forgot to mention is these hybrids are great if you're into overlanding. This would be a fantastic overland vehicle because you don't have to take your backup batteries and all of that. You just use the existing hybrid battery as your second battery, which gives you more power as well. And when you're doing slow off-roading, I'd imagine that the hybrid system actually works quite nicely. It also, you're going to use less brakes because it has this sort of it uses the momentum of when you're slowing down to recharge the battery. So they really have thought about a lot of things on this particular truck. And yeah, every time I drive a Chinese car, I can see the improvements. It gets better and better. And for the new Tank 500, even though it's 1.2 million rand, I'd say definitely worth a test drive. I expect to see a lot more of these on the road. It's a hotly contested, the luxury 7-seater market. The Germans have been dominating now. The likes of Toyota have been getting in there with the 300 series and the Nissan Patrol, but this is something a little different, and it's a big head turner. People are interested in this truck. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on my rating. But all in all, it's been a very pleasant car to drive. And then look in the back, loads of leg room here. Massive amounts of leg room. Proper. This gets you out, this car gets you out places.